Uh, right now, I want to share a few thoughts on Musnad Gate. I won't go into this too much, but I have in the past spoken about Bukhari Gate and why Bukhari, the transmission of it, is brought into question because it rests solely on the back of somebody known as Muhammad ibn Yusuf al-Farabri, and he is unvouched for. Now, you see, what's interesting is, okay, at least from Farabri, the book proliferates. Okay, and then it has huge other problems with manuscripts and hundreds of hadith here and there and chains being mixed up and whatever. But Bukhari Gate is not what I want to briefly mention. It is now Musnad Gate, the Musnad of Imam Ahmad. This is something I've been looking into. What's going on here? See, these are the jinns are... Right, this is something I've been looking into recently. It appears that there's huge problems with the Musnad of Imam Ahmad. Now, I feel that the Musnad of Imam Ahmad, this research is still ongoing, but it's definitely inclining towards that these are generally, most likely, the book is a fabrication. Okay. However, it may mean that several hadith in it are valid hadith, as in the person, when he made the book up, he could have put reliable hadith in there as well. When I say reliable, as in maybe the asl of them were actually some were actual hadith. So it doesn't mean when you make up a book, you make up every single concept that goes inside it. So, as an... Right, so just to clarify what I'm trying to say, the Musnad of Imam Ahmad is highly suspect. It appears that this book, which has something like between 30 to 40,000 hadith in it. Now, this book, I will do a more elaborate discussion on this in the future, but it appears Imam Ahmad starts writing this book. Some people, I think Shu'aib Arnaout, or other people say he's about 36 years old, he starts writing it. Okay, khalas, but he generally, what it seems to be, he writes it when he comes back from Yemen. He comes back from Yemen. He's from Iraq. He's from Basra, he travels to Kufa, he travels to Wasit, he goes to Hijaz, he comes back to Basra, he goes to Yemen. Now he goes to Yemen and studies with Abdul Razzaq San'ani. Now that's one of his key teachers. He takes whatever he can from him and then returns in the year 200 Hijri. It's after that time that he starts writing. This is when it could have only been. Now, there is, I believe it's the year 218 Hijri that the Mihna begins, and I believe it ends in 230 something. So the Mihna goes on, where is the creation of the Quran trial, the Inquisition. During that time, Imam Ahmad is prohibited from teaching publicly. So, or he's either prohibited or he self-imposes and withdraws from a public life. But the main thing is that he stops teaching and he's just at home. So it's arguable that it's during this time, if he was to write this book, that he writes it. When else does he write this book? Now, this book is not like, Bukhari, which has, let's say, under 8,000 hadith in it, 7,000 something. It's not like Muslim, close to 10,000 or whatever. This has something, falling short of 40,000 hadith. Now, they claim Imam Ahmad selected this from something like, 0.7 million hadith. These things are blags, right? There's no way. There's no way. Nothing like that. These kind of hadith don't exist. The funny thing is this, right? there's about 5,000 hadith. Okay, let's stretch it, 7,000. Let's be super generous. Let's be super generous. Let's say 10,000 hadith. There ain't 10,000 hadith, but let's say there's probably around 7,000 hadith. Yeah. Now, even if we take 10,000 hadith, for these people to say that they had memorized 1,000,000 hadith, 700,000 hadith were known by Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal. This is what they say. That doesn't even make any sense, because you see, the scholars all transmitted this stuff until later scholars started counting hadith. Then they realized we got a problem here. Samasya. They realized, what do we do? Because there's a tiny fraction of hadith that exists, so compared to this number. So then they started to say, oh, well, a hadith means variations, like repetitions, but with... So, okay, but then they started to say, oh, even if the word wa changes, that's a new hadith. Then they started to say, even if the name in the chain is said with a slight, instead of his name, they use a kunya. Instead of saying Mufti, they said Abu Layth. That's now a new chain. So it's a new hadith. It's like, yeah, what were these guys memorizing? 700,000. And are there 700,000 hadith? No. Are there 100,000 hadith? No. Are there 70,000 hadith? No. Are there 50,000 hadith? No. Are there 20,000? 10,000? Really? No. 7,000? Okay. It's like, what is all this excess thing? Like, what is this? I feel that there was so much kind of exaggeration going on that the later ulama were kind of stuck with it. And if you say that these were blags or exaggerations, then you undermine their authority now. And if you undermine their authority, you undermine the commodity, which is hadith, which is the project, what these later scholars were concerned with. So it undermines your own efforts, because your own efforts are to do with hadith, which rest on the back of these scholars. So you can't undermine them. So therefore, you have to somehow explain. And it's like they say Imam Ahmad chose these hadith from 400,000 hadith. But it's like there ain't 400,000 hadith. I don't know why you... Okay, some people might then say, oh, what they meant by this was opinions of Sahaba, opinions of Tabi'een, opinions of Tabi'een. We're going to call everything a hadith. But this is really gymnastics just to justify that first statement, that these people knew all this stuff. So, yeah. But now coming back to this, let's say Imam Ahmad had now 40,000 hadith. Or they say between 30 to 40. Abu Musa, Al-Maqdisi and other people have... kind of done works on the Musnad of Ahmad. Obviously, so many people have done works on the Musnad of Ahmad. Ibn Hajar spoken about it, Shu'aib Arnaout, you've got Ahmad Shakir, all these people. Now, people say there's less than 40,000, more than 30,000. Let's go with a mid-range, 35,000 hadith. Right. Even if we say, I'll tell you what, let's take the bottom range, 30,000 hadith. Even though they all say there's more than 30,000 hadith in there. Imam Ahmad writes this book, 30,000 hadith. He teaches it to his two sons, Saleh and Abdullah. He teaches it to his nephew, Hanbal. His nephew's name was Hanbal. And I believe another nephew as well. But, so at least 4 people. Now, from all of these people, the only person to transmit the Musnad of Ahmad was his one son, Abdullah. Nobody else transmits the Musnad of Ahmad. Okay. Why is that interesting? Okay, that's rather okay. That would be wow, quite interesting. Let's say, but where it gets really interesting is the only person to transmit it from Abdullah ibn Hanbal, Abdullah ibn Ahmad ibn Hanbal, are not all his popular students and all his contemporaries or his other brother or, you know, all these other great dons. And no. There's this guy called Abu Bakr al-Qati'i. Abu Bakr Ahmad al-Qati'i. Abu Bakr Ahmad al-Qati'i. Now, if I'm going to do a more detailed point of this, but he is born in the year 274 Hijri. He's born in 274 Hijri. He dies in 368 lives a very long life of 95 years. Abdullah ibn Ahmad ibn Hanbal, Ahmad ibn Hanbal's son, who's born in 213 Hijri, dies in 295 at the age of 77. So, if Abu Bakr al-Qati'i is born in 274, so he can't start taking this book straight away, can he? Come on, like, he's just born. So, what do you want to give him? Shall we say, like, what? Because by the time he's going to, and by the way, this, saying he's born in 274 is a stretch, because people say he was actually born in 276. But I'm going here with I'm giving it a bit of a leeway. Now, if he is born, as they say, in 276, then, but when the author dies, Ahmad ibn Hanbal's son dies, he would only be, what does that make him, 19? In this case, it makes him, let's say, 21 when he dies. So, with a stretch. So, when does he start taking this book from his son? Because remember, he's got to grow up first. So let's say at the age of 13, he starts studying Islam. Okay. He's got to study Usul al-Hadith. It doesn't mean you just grow up and you hit puberty and somebody says, you become the sole transmitter of Musnad Ahmad on this globe today. So, I mean, at what age does he start studying? And he's a kid. He's a teenager. Some teenager who's taking 30,000 hadith of the Musnad of Imam Ahmad. Yeah? This person, who, by the way, some muhaddithin say, he, like Ibn Abil Fawaris says that he wasn't even all that in hadith. We don't even rate him. And he was somebody, they say, he claims this Musnad of Ahmad appears after his region, which was called Qati'a. This region drowns. And so he resurfaces, and then as he resurfaces with this book, and it emerges, and he transmits. And then the sole transmitter from him is another dodgy guy called Ibn al-Mudhib, al-Wa'id al-Tamimi, who has massively problematic. And then they say there's a sole transmitter from him who is equally problematic. Now, what I'm really curious about, how can this reservoir of hadith, 30,000 hadith, be transmitted by Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal's son to a teenager? I mean, you've got all these, that his sole heir is this random teenager, who himself, by the way, right, only gives it on to one person. One-on-one. This one rather dubious, this one dubious. So this is massively, I find it quite whoa. So people, I'm going to leave that there.